So, hi everyone, I am Kavya, and today we have Himanshu here with us. Currently, he is the VP of Engineering at Apollo. He has an experience of over 15 years working across machine learning, data platforms, and engineering leadership, from early NLP work to like Amazon scale systems and a startup CTO role. Thank you so much, Himanshu, for taking all the time to do this. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been great, and thanks for having me here. Well, I've actually been pretty excited for the past few days, honestly. I've been using Cloud Code, which is why I've been excited. Just to give you some context.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. I think we'll circle back definitely to like how you've been using Claude as well. But yeah, to like I think to begin with, I'd love to understand your journey. So like what initially sparked your interest in like software development and in this space, and how did it like evolve over time?
Yeah, I was mostly just interested in maths and related subjects. And in India, by default, most people become engineers or doctors. I became an engineer, but I chose computer science, or back then it was information technology, the branch that I took in my undergrad. I was very interested in coding since my undergrad. But one thing that I used to do differently was I was always exploring things outside of my regular day-to-day coding assignments, and I was always trying to figure out what is something additional that I can learn or build. And I ended up building a few small software while I was in undergrad. And then I also realized there's this new field called machine learning and natural language processing. And that made me apply for internships. And in my third year of undergrad, I went for an internship at Triple IT Hyderabad. And there I got into a little bit of NLP research, but I saw other people doing masters and PhD in that field. And that interested me a lot. And then applied for foreign internships, which was pretty rare at our undergrad college back then. But I was fortunate to get into National University of Singapore. There was an internship of about 2 to 3 months. So I went there, worked on recommendation systems. And then after my internship, and I had been preparing for masters anyways for almost like 2 years. So applied for GRE, got into masters, and that's where I started doing both research as well as building actual software that I could launch to customers. So it has been a very gradual transition from initially being a bit research oriented to starting to build software, real software that can be used by the actual customers. That's how the whole journey panned out.
All right, all right. So like let's talk a little of like early 2010s or like somewhere on that time. How did like production ML look at that time? Like if you wanna explore on that.
So yeah, I just graduated in 2010, and I started my first job in 2011. During that time, I was mostly building a lot of machine learning products just out of curiosity, and a lot of those products did not have real world implications, or they did not work too well in the real world, because I was working on things like summarization, or there was like sentiment analysis product that I was trying to build, which really just did not work as well as I had hoped. So a lot of the natural language processing related tasks had very low accuracy back then in production. Like natural language understanding and natural language generation was considered to be like the one of the most difficult fields uh, to get a hold on, and production applications had very low precision recall in those tasks. But easier applications like classification, uh, regression analysis, classification, some image detection, some of those simpler machine learning tasks, they had pretty good accuracy back then. And the real machine learning was mostly being done in the FANGs, like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and so on. And obviously, machine translation was also doing pretty well because Google had already launched their Google Machine Translate product by that time. So yeah, I would say some of the easier applications of machine learning had really good accuracy in production, but the core natural language processing related tasks were way behind. Like you could not build a actual real sentiment classifier because it would get stuck in sarcasm. Like sarcasm detection was just super difficult. So sentiment analysis, natural language understanding, natural language generation, all these were very difficult tasks back then, and they remained very difficult until the advent of transformers until a few years ago. So yeah, that was the state back then.
Got it, got it. And like, how has the direction of traditional machine learning, I think, changed over past couple of years? Like, with the advancement of GPTs and Gemini models, and like whole lot of models. Like, what is your take on that?
So it started changing. It started changing with the Google paper about attention is all you need. Like that was the turning point when transformers started gaining prominence. Uh, my first interaction with LLMs or GPT type models was in 2020 when LLMs were not even a thing. When OpenAI was it was a tiny startup trying to build something. Um, and I got to know about it when I was working on my own startup. I got to know about it, and I was pretty amazed to see that it is able to generate English language with a good enough accuracy. It wasn't doing too well, but it was still better than most of the systems out there. So I integrated it in one of my products, and that product it became the number two product on Product Hunt when I was building it at my own startup. And a lot of people used it, and they were quite surprised by the accuracy of the English that it was generating. The product was more around generating descriptions for Amazon e-commerce products on Amazon pages automatically. So the product worked pretty well. That's when I knew that, OpenAI guys are onto something. They're probably going to make it pretty big. And yeah, to no surprise, in 2022, a lot of people started noticing what OpenAI was doing, and GPT models started becoming the rage. I was not surprised at all, honestly. Yeah, but it was like I could connect very well to my startup days that I already knew this thing was doing something. They were doing very well. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people are now just into this field now. So yeah, that was the transition personally for me, where I was hoping that it would pick up, and it did in 2022. But after that, it's like once majority of people started learning about OpenAI and GPT models, then after that it was just a gold rush. Everyone wanted to do it.
Right. Nice. You mentioned like making your own startup in around 2020. So like I'd love to know more about that. Like what inspired it? Like if you want to talk on that.
The inspiration was because I was just interested in building things outside of my regular day-to-day work. And even like since undergrad, as I mentioned, I was just building something on the side. But even after that, I had probably tried building at least a dozen products at various points in my life. And I applied to Y Combinator 3 times. Uh, and I did not get into Y Combinator, but I did end up building products that had some customer traction, not a lot. But then after trying for so many years, I realized that the way to actually eventually build something of my own would be to get closer to the startup world. So I left I left my cushy job and joined a small startup. It was a Series B education technology company back then. It was called Lambda School. So I joined Lambda School, and I stayed there for about a year, built my network. And after about a year, I got an opportunity to start my own thing. And also, I was able to secure funding very quickly. Like within a month, we had closed pre-seed and seed round. So the inspiration it was all the years of trying to build something of my own. I think all of that just led to eventually being successful in at least starting something.
Right, got it. And would you like to talk about like some challenges or like some hard roads that you learned like while doing that? So you mentioned that you wanted to make products and that was the core inspiration behind it. But like now on the ground reality, would you like to share like any challenges that or any learnings if you like want to share on that?
I mean, all of it is learning, and I'm still learning about how to build the right products. It's just different stages. It's just different stages of learning or different stages of the startup that you are at that you learn about exactly how to be successful at that specific stage. So at that specific stage, my learnings were a lot more around what's the right way to get product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually did not succeed in getting product market fit. But I just learned a lot of ways in which you can fail. I guess that was a good learning. I got to know the real ground reality of specific types of products. So the product that we were trying to build was very logistics heavy, and I had to play so many different roles where I was the CTO building, like actually coding. I was also kind of like part-time designer because I had to hire designers and tell them exactly what I need designed. I was also the logistics manager for my startup because we were selling products, physical products on Amazon, Walmart, and some of these marketplaces. That was just part of one of our ideas. So during daytime, I would go to our storage or like a small warehouse, and I would pack products and send out to customers. and that took multiple hours per day. uh, and during the night time or evening and night, I was coding or trying to build a design or create a design through a designer, um, or brainstorming about what should we build next, what are the features that we need to add in these products. So it was a lot of work day in and day out. uh, so yes, the first thing that I learned was, depending upon the product, type of product that you are building, the amount of work that you need to put in can just vary a lot. And it is up to you to figure out exactly which kind of problem you want to solve and which kind of work you want to do. Your work could be like 80% on the ground, on the field work, and 20% coding, or it could be 80% coding and 20% something else. Um, so I definitely got my lesson on what kind of work I want to do in the future. Another lesson was just moving way faster and trying to build multiple ideas in parallel at the initial stages of the company. In order to figure out product market fit, we have to have multiple ideas in parallel. Well, not like 5 ideas in parallel, but try out at least 2 things in parallel and invest a sufficient amount of time before you start seeing any kind of traction, and then quickly iterate. Like, iteration is the main thing. Getting feedback from customers, just talking to a lot of customers to figure out exactly how they are trying to use our product, because oftentimes it is the wrong ways in which the customers are trying to use our product which gets you to your next idea, because then you understand that, oh, our customers are actually trying to use our product in this way, but our product is not meant to be used this way. What if we just change our product itself so it becomes easier for our users to do what they are actually trying to do in our product. So we stumbled upon such type of customer behavior multiple times when I was doing the startup. So I think these three were the main learnings. Eventually we got acqui-hired. We did not find product market fit, but eventually we did get an exit. The outcome was, I would say, it was a fair outcome.
You mentioned like we would need to probably explore different ideas for like finding that product market fit. But like as a founder, how do you decide like how much like the cost that you've already invested in that? Is that a sunk cost? Or like how do you decide that now is the time to move? Or like how now is the time to like, reinvent? How do you decide that?
Customers make it pretty obvious. Um, and during the starting phase, you don't have a lot of product usage feedback. So it's not like, oh, hey, just collect data and based upon data you can make a lot of decisions, because there's basically no data. The only data is the little bit of usage that you get on your product through customers, and by just conducting a lot of interviews. So user research is the primary mechanism for you to figure out if you're working on the right thing or not. So you have to just conduct a lot of customer interviews and continuously talk to customers or prospective customers to figure out exactly what customers are really looking for. And you should not be building huge products right out of the bat. I would say there are two school of thought on this. One school of thought is that you should just build an MVP and get it out the door and let customers use the MVP and tell you what they want to see in your product. The other school of thought is, which is emerging now, is that you should not build half-baked products, because customers will likely just not use a half-baked product. So your MVP, whatever the definition of your MVP is, it should still be complete. It should still be an end-to-end product experience, because you cannot just build something that only gives customer like 20% satisfaction and then expect that customers will come again and they'll use that product. Your first version of the product itself should be just end to end. It just works. And these days, building such products has become like, that's just table stakes. Anyone can build an end to end working product. So definitely it is very relevant these days that build not just build an MVP, but build a really good product. Uh, Even in your first iteration, your product should be amazing, and then you start getting more and more feedback from the customers, and that's how you know what is the next thing that I need to do based upon how the feedback that customers are giving to you.
Got it. Yeah, I do feel that as well, that like given the velocity at which we can actually make products, the bar is pretty high now. Like I think even if you open Product Hunt right now, you're gonna see like amazing landing pages and amazing everything. And those are just the MVP. So like Yeah, I think the bar is pretty high right now. Thank you for sharing that. I wanna talk a little about your time at Amazon. Like, if you wanna like, give an overview of like what you did like of something, if you wanna like talk on that.
Yeah, so at Amazon, uh, I was part of three teams at different points of time. When I joined, I was at the Amazon. I worked on Amazon Ads. There, I was building um, an NLP-based service for ad targeting. Then moved to Amazon Search, where I was working on query understanding modeling for our search engine. Where how would you how would you figure out different features in a user submitted query so that the search becomes more and more relevant? Like how do you improve the search relevance of the whole search engine? Then I moved to Amazon Music, where I started a team which was called ML. It was called Data Science Platform, and then I renamed it to Machine Learning Platform later. But at Amazon Music, I was building experimentation and productionization platforms for machine learning products. Later, it evolved into data platform plus machine learning platform, where I was also leading our data pipelines. How do we build data pipelines using Spark jobs, and maintaining our data warehouse, and just building on top of our existing data sets and building products on top of our existing data sets, and partnering closely with the machine learning teams. So yeah, for most of my time at Amazon, I was mostly building backend products or platforms, uh, but I was also just working on side projects and building full stack applications in my free time.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you for sharing. So I think I'll move a little to like other current stage now. So as an engineering leader, what is something that you've seen like engineers struggle with, like people in tech? What is something that like you feel that they're facing problems with, like something that they constantly struggle with? If you want to talk on that.
So things are shifting very fast, and my answer would have been very different like a year ago, or even just a few months ago. My answer would have been pretty different, because I think in the coming days, like currently and in the coming days, the things that engineers would struggle would be way different than the things that were problematic even until like 1 year ago. Because now the cost of writing code is very low. You can build applications, you can create products, create features very quickly now. So there is less struggle in writing code, which means that the bar will increase. It will get to a place where thinking about the whole product will become the main skill to acquire. And that's also where I would say engineers will need to engineers will need to think a lot more about how they can influence the full software development lifecycle, rather than just the coding aspect of it, or rather than just the technical engineering part of the full SDLC. Now, engineers have all the code, even like designers and product managers, they have the tools to, as soon as an idea comes to their mind, they have the tools to build a full application, or at least a prototype that makes things move way faster. Engineers, similarly, they have all the tools. They don't need to wait for the perfect design all the time. They can still build prototypes just based upon smaller PRDs, although that needs to be refined on a continuous basis in order for things to work exactly as how someone would have imagined, as a product manager would have imagined. But the wait times are decreasing a lot. And that's one thing where I think a lot of engineers would still probably struggle in trying to change their thinking from how do I work on a perfectly created PRD and a perfectly created design and then turn it into an actual product, to how do I just take some idea that a product manager has and then very quickly try to just build at least a first version. And the perfect designs could even come later. The perfect PRD could come later, but a first version of the product could even come even before this. And then we can just iterate on that version. Like that would just give the product manager a lot more to think about. That would um, that would help an engineer to write a better ERD for the same product, because you can figure out where things are failing in your first version itself. What were the shortcomings? And you can build those versions within a day or two, like using Cloud Code. I'm just amazed how powerful Cloud Code is. You can build these type of prototypes within a day or two, at least for full stack applications. I don't think this is true for a lot of very complicated backend applications yet.
Got
So
it.
I would say this would be one of the primary things where engineers will start seeing a lot of changes in, and also some struggles. But traditionally, I think the main struggle has been in terms of how are you handling end-to-end product. Engineers are usually pretty good in coding, where they sometimes the struggle is in making sure that whatever they are building, it actually turns into an end-to-end product, which involves all aspects of software engineering. You have to be really good in communication. You have to be really collaborate with the design teams, with the product teams, with the DevOps team, and you're taking the end-to-end ownership of the product that you're building, and not just taking ownership of just the code that you're writing. Taking this end-to-end ownership is usually a growth area for at least the junior engineers, if not the senior ones.
Let's talk a little about like AI right now, because like why not? So for teams that are like just starting to tap into AI, what's like the right way, or like what's like the way to think about it? Like if they're like just net new, they're starting brand new from it.
It would differ from company to company, from team to team. For smaller startups that don't have a humongous code base already, it's just so much easier for them to start building something and iterating fast on something. They can move way, way faster using these coding agents. For companies like Apollo that have been here for a while, almost like 10 years, and we have a big code base. We have almost like a 10-year-old monolith repository. It will not be as smooth as someone starting from scratch. So obviously building a prototype is way easier than building a product in a complicated code base where there is so much tribal knowledge that might still not be present in a Slack channel or in a Notion document, or it might not be documented anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Things would still not be as fast as it would be at a new startup, which is why we are seeing a lot of these new age AI-based startups growing very fast, because they're able to build products uh, in a matter of days, if not weeks. And we recently saw a couple of examples where Anthropic, even though it has become very big now, its code base is not 10 years old. And recently they showed an example where during the holiday time, Claude Code was being used by people, and people were doing all sorts of things with Claude Code. They were generating code, but they were also doing many more things. And Anthropic noticed it, and they used Claude Code to build Claude Coworker within 10 days, and then they launched it. So this is how fast even mid-sized companies can move. Similarly, Cursor also mentioned that they built a whole browser integrated within Cursor using Cursor itself within just a few days. And the first version itself was pretty good. It was not what some of these traditional browsers are, but it was still, it was an okay first trial. So I think similarly, building the first versions of most of the products, even at mid-sized startups, should be very, very easy now. It's a matter of how you are using the AI tool. I think that's where the gap would be. Everyone knows that a lot is possible using these AI tools, but the gap will remain in engineers that learn the right way to use the AI tool versus not. Because there will always be people that may not want to get out of their comfort zone, and they might still expect that if I give this a specific prompt to this coding agent, it would just work. And if the coding agent does not do the thing that they wanted it to do, they would just lose hope, and they would go back to the traditional coding, or like just doing small tasks with the coding agent. And there would be this other breed of engineers that would realize that if the coding agent is not doing something, then it is very likely I'm not using the right context to get to it so that it can do the things that it should be doing. For example, Cloud Code has access to your full file system, which mean and it has access to a lot of MCP servers. Like you can just connect any MCP server. You can in fact connect an MCP server to Cloud Code by just asking Cloud Code to connect itself to an MCP server. For the weekend, I just asked Cloud Code to connect to the Snowflake MCP server, and it connected itself to the MCP server by just asking a few questions from me. And you can do that for almost like every other MCP server out there. So Cloud Code is just so powerful that it can also work on automating itself and figuring out what is the right way to use itself. You still have to force it to do a lot of those things. It might say that I'm not capable of connecting to an MCP server, and it might just give you an instruction. Okay, follow these instructions to connect to an MCP server. But you know the way it is architected that it has access to the full file system, and it has access to the web. So there is no reason why it cannot use all those tools to update its own configuration. So you can just say, hey, just do it. Just connect yourself. You have all the tools available, just do it. And it will realize that it can actually do it and it will connect itself to the MCP server. Or like it will do whatever you ask it to do. So it is just, these tools are just so powerful that if they are not doing the things that you want them to do, then it will become more and more likely that you are not using the tool correctly to get it to produce the output that you want it to produce. It could be either you are not using it in a step-by-step fashion, or it could be that you are not providing the right context to use the tool, or it could be that you have not connected to the right kind of MCP servers, or you have not provided the right kind of system access to it
Mhm.
for it to be able to do the things that you want it to do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think providing the right context and being able to realize how to use the tools the right way will become a differentiator between engineers that will really become 10x engineers eventually versus not.
Interesting insight. I think we'll drill down more and I think next week as well. I want to talk about like what are your thoughts on like a company being AI native or like how what's your opinion on that? So I see that like a lot of traditional companies also trying to be AI native. One is that, and secondly, what are your thoughts on like agency, like giving the full control to AI, giving the full control to LLM to do everything that it wants, or doing it in a guided or a steering it in a like a contained environment. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, yeah. So two questions, right? One is what is an AI native company, and the other is do we give full agency to the agent or not, right? So the AI native thing, I think that's most companies are trying to push to present themselves or at least market themselves as AI native, even if they are not. And it is possible for a lot of companies to become AI native versus it does not make sense for other companies to become AI native.
Yeah.
But it's the definition of what is an AI native company. Like no one knows what the definition is. It just means that you are using AI tools as much as you can. And you are using, because you could be AI native either in your product, the product that you are building, or you could be AI native in your culture, that the company itself is just using AI tools so much that by default they are choosing an AI tool for their work rather than the traditional approach. So to me, like this is how you would define an AI native company from a culture perspective, that the mindset of the company is such that every single work that they are supposed to do, they first think of an AI tool that could automate that work rather than going the traditional route. If you
Mhm.
have to write a strategy document, then your first instinct should be, hey, how can I get all the data that I need to write this strategy document using some AI tool? Like you can use Glean, Notion, Slack, MCPs, or like there are so many AI tools out there that can give you all the context that you need in order to write documents. That should be the thinking. And that's how you become AI native culturally.
Hmm.
That's how most companies are trying to inculcate in their culture. The other aspect of being AI native is that is your product AI native or not, which means that is your product primarily AI guided versus a traditional product where AI is just bolted on.
Mhm.
A lot of companies are trying to present themselves as AI native product companies, but but they need to be careful in figuring out, whether whether a product even requires being AI native or not. Because most companies, the definition of becoming an AI native company is that hey, just slap a chat interface on top of your product
Hmm.
and make sure that every aspect of a product is controlled through the chat interface so that people, when they come in, they start chatting with the product and they can use a product that way. But like, that's not the right interface all the time. You should think about what is the right interface for the user. And chat may not be the answer all the time.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
can be the answer in certain aspects of your products, but it cannot be the answer for everything. Let me think of an example. For example, yeah, it's like I think Amazon would probably eventually try to get into some kind of chat experience shopping interface. But if you think about it, people like browsing stuff. And a lot of the time, even on Amazon, they are just window shopping. that is just the experience that rhymes with customers. And it does not make sense for Amazon, at least not right away, to change that interface to a chat based interface where if you are wanting to buy something, then the result of that search in a chat is just straight up the thing that you want to buy. Because a lot of people just don't want to do that. They just want to window shop and they want to see all the different types of things that are present on the website. Buying a gift, you want to explore a lot of different type of gifts and you want the system to suggest different variations. So I think maybe eventually this product could also become a chat based interface or AI native interface. But at least right now, the customer's mindset is not that they don't want the straight up the exact product that they want to buy if they are in the mode of window shopping. So it depends upon, so you have to identify what your customer, what is the persona of your customer, what they want to do, and how they want to use your product, and then your product, then you tune your product based upon the persona of the customer. So yeah, like that's how I would say AI native is not for everyone. It's pretty nuanced, and companies should be careful when they are trying to bolt on a chat interface on their existing product and hoping that users will come and they'll start using the chat interface without thinking about how they might have degraded the actual product experience.
Yeah, I think that like pretty much answers like my question. And yeah, like thoughts on agency. Like, do you think chatbots should be given agency to do any and everything?
Well, we have to be very careful. If you're using Cloud Code, if you're using Cloud Code, the good feature in Cloud Code is that it asks you to choose one of two options. Like there's a third option, which is like just do something else. Usually, when it's trying to execute a command, it asks you whether you want this command to be executed just once this time, or do you want to give Cloud Code access to just execute this command all the time. And that's where you have to be very careful. Like there's just one example of where you cannot just give the full access to the agent to do everything, because I recently came out from a meeting where one of our engineers, he mentioned that he accidentally deleted his dot uh, ZSH file, like his profile file, when he was using Cloud Code. But like these are the type of things where you have to be very careful when you are giving access to certain commands. For example, if you have connected Cloud Code to your database or to your data warehouse, then ideally you should not give access to create or delete tables. You should remove those commands. You should only give access to read the data. If you have to create a table, then you should let the agent to create a table once you have made sure that the command is right. So like these are the different types of scenarios where you'll have to be very careful, where you need to give access to the agent versus not. Maybe there will be a time where the agent will become so powerful and intelligent that you won't even have to think about what access it has versus not. But I think that would be a very dangerous time because we won't even realize, and things might go wrong. Things might just go wrong in a very different, they may go in a very different direction and we may not even realize. And it might just be too late before we realize that the LLM has done something that it should not have done just because it thought it's the right thing to do. Like it's very difficult to control an LLM and teach it all the right possibilities in the world. It's likely going to take multiple years for it to learn all the right ways to do things. It's like humans take 20, 30 years and we still remain pretty ignorant about different things. There's so many things. We made mistakes all the time and this is just a machine.
Got it, got it, got it. I want to talk a little about like let's come to the software development life cycle. Right now, AI is trying to, I think, help in almost all of the functions of the software development life cycle, be it PM, be it engineers, be it like I think other aspects of it. So where do you see like a potential, let's say gap or let's say opportunity where we as engineers or like we as people can maybe improve or like use AI or leverage AI where we are not already?
Yeah. So the strategy should be almost like a T-shaped strategy where everyone should be good at the full SDLC, the full
Mhm.
software development lifecycle, but we would still need people that are very skilled in their own skill set, which means that a designer should now start getting ramped up on everything that requires a product to be built. A designer should be able to code. A designer should be able to deploy. A designer should be able to see exactly how their prototype looks like when it gets deployed, and not just design things. But we still need a designer to design things the right way. Like we cannot just say that, and I'm able to build a prototype, which is why I'm a designer, because there will always be so many nuances which will not be possible for an engineer to learn about design. The same goes for the product field. Sure, like product manager should know all these different aspects. The product manager should be able to design something, write code, build prototypes, maybe deploy. But then we still need a product manager who can serve as the owner of the product, who's always in touch with the customer, who understands what are the right things to be built next, and who's always able to guide the team towards the right direction. And same goes for the engineer. You don't need a designer to get started, but you do need a designer to build the right product eventually. You can build a first version without a designer, without a product manager, and that will help you in moving very, very fast. But an engineer should still be very skilled at least reviewing code and making sure that the software engineering is followed to the T when they're building a product. Good deployment practices, like proper bug bashes, good security reviews, like everything should be followed properly by the engineer because they are the ones who understand this type of the whole engineering life cycle. But sure, like they can also design stuff. They can also do a lot of product management, thinking about new features that can be added. But that does not mean that the roles will become the same. The roles will still exist as they are. They will just get way more closer.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. That sounds like fair. Yeah, so like looking forward, what shifts do you anticipate like that would come in tech? So looking at like the patterns of let's say past few months, not even years now, past few months, what shifts do you anticipate and like what would you like to focus on like moving forward?
The primary shift will likely be in how much can be get done using either coding agents or just in general agents. It's almost surprising. It's very surprising actually to see the leap Claude Code seems to have made compared to the other coding agents,
Mm-hmm.
where people that are using Cloud Code, they are saying that it is a notch above other coding agents. I do see that it is obviously more powerful than other coding agents because it has access to your whole file system. So it's the scope is not limited to just the current directory that it is working or the current repository. The scope is everything. And then MCP connection is way easier. Uh, and also it has removed some of these hurdles or some of the friction points because you can use Cloud Code in Cursor's terminal and you can switch between the two, or you can use Cloud Code in VS Code while Windsurf alongside Windsurf, and you can just switch between different agents all the time. But Cloud Code primarily, since it is terminal based, it's very easy to just continuously. It allows you to do a lot more using the terminal because then you don't have to move your fingers and click on buttons and so on. So for engineers, it will definitely be faster. I think for the non-engineering persona, people might still want some kind of UI, which is why they launched Cloud Coworker. But I think for engineers, using these agents through terminal is better than using it through a UI. And especially since Cloud Code is more powerful, you can just get a lot more done. So the shift will definitely be in the speed of producing products, in building end-to-end products, where which I think the pre-Cloud Code generation was we did see in the pre-Cloud Code generation, we did see a bump in the speed, like in PR velocity and how fast we are able to build products. But I did not see a real next improvement in speed in the pre-Cloud Code era. But with Cloud Code, the kind of use cases that I have been able to do and the kind of use cases that other people have been telling me they have been able to do, it definitely feels like a 10x improvement in speed. So I think that's where everyone will need to make sure that they also become a 10x engineer or their productivity goes 10x from here. And if it is not going 10x, then figure out why. There has to be a reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Himanshu, was great chatting with you. I think like to conclude, I just have like one more question from you. So speaking from my perspective, I feel like Cursor and like things like Claude Code have definitely increased the PR velocity. But I feel like for people early in their journey, it is a little, we can say ironical, but because like we're not like able to very deeply understand of what would have been the right way. Definitely hit and trial is there. Definitely a lot of support from a lot of different people, and like drive to learn is there. So like, what is that one piece of advice for people in early career would like you'd give?
I think we'll have to change the way we are teaching computer science because it's like you don't need to learn assembly now. But back when assembly language was all the rage, then some of the most advanced students, they would have wanted to learn assembly. And they might have thought that, hey, learning this thing will make me a better programmer in the future because this is the core. This is what I need to understand. But then the world moved over to Java and Python, and no one wants to learn assembly, but they all want to learn the best practices of Java, best practices of Python, but no one cares about how the code is getting compiled at the compiler layer and what happens after that. My assumption is this is exactly what's going to happen going forward, where we may worry that learning the basics of coding are still important, but they probably won't be as important in the next few years because LLMs would become so powerful that they will just do the right thing. The code will almost always be right. But what
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to worry about is what is the next higher level language that you need to know using which you can build the right kind of things that you want to build. So coding might evolve into some kind of English plus technical understanding of how to build products. Maybe there is this new language that comes into picture, which is English based, but also has a lot of technical nuances on how to build a product. And then code is just an artifact, a side artifact of using this higher level language. So yeah, my advice to the up and coming students would be continue to learn coding, continue to learn the basics of computer science, but make sure you're also ramping up on the AI tools and how this field is evolving, because I think there will be a rapid change even in education, even in computer science education, depending upon where this field is headed.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Himanshu, for sharing this with me, and like great catching up with you. Um, like any questions if you have from me, like I'd be happy to take that as well.
Yeah, no specific question, but yeah, thanks for having me here. I enjoyed our talk a lot and all the best for your upcoming podcasts.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great catching up.